The only way it's going to happen, I want you guys to understand something. It's just when people are yelling for it. Stop asking for a plan. Just start yelling for it. Start demanding it. Just start demanding it. Just be like, Bernie, start a new party. Let's start this off with Chuck Schumer getting interviewed.
A shutdown. Give Donald.
And it is one of the most pathetic things I've ever seen in my life.
Are split over how they will vote on the Republican plan to keep the government funded, though on Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Genuine question. Why was Hassan so surprised to see the controlled opposition do exactly what they've always done? I could not understand how he was so surprised. I think it is actually surprising, to be honest. I don't think it's okay. It's not surprising to me. It's not surprising to me. But even people who are like dyed-in-the-wool Democratic partisans are acting weird. Okay. My boomer mom just told me she likes it because she thinks Trump can get away with more shit in the shutdown. Your mom is stupid. And she's watching MSNBC. That's literally it. She doesn't have... Do you think your mom knows about fucking... I mean, I'm sorry, but do you think your mom knows about, like, anything? Like, do you think she understands procedure? She understands budgetary law? Like, what the fuck are you... Your mom thinks she knows more than, like, the entire Democratic Party caucus in the House? She just saw something on TV and repeated it back like a fucking ape. I'm sorry, your mom is a dumbass. That's all this clown does, watches clips and regurgitates it. Huh? I do political analysis. Wait a minute. I just literally told you, I mean, maybe you just got here because this is your first time chat and you've never watched me before. But I literally just talked about my experience organizing in a Senate campaign where I was the political director. What are you talking about? I'm not Hutch. I'm not Destiny. I've done real politics. What are you talking about? I'm not some fucking loser who was a failed semi-pro StarCraft streamer. Can you... Jesus fucking Christ. Why do you people come in here and post like you know anything?
Trump's budget director, and this is key, is
incredible.
already reportedly preparing to ignore the spending appropriated in the bill. Some Democrats have said they will not support the plan, even if it means a government shutdown. But Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer of New York says he will support the vote basically to get the bill in a position to pass and to keep the government open.
So, one of Fetterman's staffers posted on Twitch, or on Twitter, excuse me.
For sure, the Republican bill is a terrible option. It is not a clean CR. It is deeply partisan. It doesn't address far too many of this country's needs. But I believe allowing Donald Trump to take even much more power via a government shutdown is a far worse option.
And Senator Chuck Schumer joins me now. Senator, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Let's just start on this. I think there are a lot of people watching this right now who are confused about this decision.
Okay.
Or upset by it. So just spell out...
Oh, yeah. What was I saying? I got distracted. Sorry. So a Fetterman staffer is like, Schumer's right. Dems are understandably spoiling for a fight, but this was not it. The idea that there was leverage in a shutdown was magical thinking. It'll be a gift to Doge. More people will be hurt. And it would have ended with a worse deal. Fight, but pick smart fights. What they mean is fight, but not have any leverage whatsoever. Fight, but make it symbolic. Don't put any pressure on the Republicans. That's what they mean. And I just simply replied, you are not a human being. I'd call you a worm, but at least their shit becomes dirt. You are less than a worm. You are a parasite. That was one of my better insults. I came up with that on the spot. And it's very important to understand that these pathetic fucking losers don't believe in anything.
Just give me your logic, particularly on this sort of on the one hand, on the other. What is the cost you see to the constitutional order of a shutdown that isn't already being done now?
It's a dramatic cost. Here's why, Chris. Under a shutdown, it is the executive branch, in this case Trump, Musk, Doge, and Vogt, who's head of the OMB, who we all know are authoritarians, vicious, nasty, who would have sole control over what is funded and what isn't. They get to determine what is a, quote, essential service. And they will just cut to smithereens, far greater than in the CR bill, which is a lousy bill, far greater than that, what could be funded and what couldn't. And there's no recourse. You can't go to court. This is a decision totally in the executive branch. And so it would be devastating. Why is it that Elon Musk and Donald Trump want a government shutdown? So they can take control of the government and do their vicious, horrible things. They could cut half the government. They could tell employees you're not essential and never bring them back, permanently firing them. It's a disaster. And in a few weeks, if there was a shutdown, everyone would be complaining and howling. Why did they cut? Why did they eliminate SNAP? Why did they cut so much?
Good. Good. They're destroying everything anyway, you dumbass, and people would understand it immediately. Instead of having it happen slapdashly, everybody would be like, why are the Republicans doing this? It would make it real to people. Instead of allowing people to be picked off one by one. This is why Chuck Schumer is a loser. Because military doctrine, there's a concept known as defeat in detail. It answers the question of how, as a smaller organization or a weaker organization, do you attack an organization that's bigger than you? Because traditionally, to get a successful attack, you need to outnumber the defenders. Attacking is harder than defending. So how could a smaller force defeat a bigger army? The answer is defeat in detail. It involves operational and strategic tempo. So a defender may be larger, but if the attacker has the initiative, they have the ability to win. How do you do that? How do you win as a smaller force against a larger enemy? The answer is the idea of defeat in detail. When an organization is on the defense, it has to spread its defenders out over multiple points. So what defeat in detail does is the smaller attacker creates local superiority. It creates local superiority and defeats a section of their enemy one at a time. So let's say that one side has 10 soldiers and the other side has 5 soldiers. Or sorry, let's make it easy to divide. One side has 12 and the other side has 6, right? And they have 3 points they need to defend with their 12 soldiers, right? Well, they'll split the 12 up into 4 soldiers at each defensive point. Well, the attacker of 6 then goes and fights the enemy of 4 and wins. So 4 is greater than 6. 4 is greater than 6. 4 is greater than 6. You get local superiority, and that gives you the ability to beat a larger enemy. Defeat in detail. And that's exactly what Chuck Schumer is providing for the Democrats and for the government. He is allowing Trump to go one at a time at each important thing and fight it on its own. Oh, I'm going to fight the post office now. All right, I've beaten the post office. Now I'm going to fight food stamps. Okay, I've beaten food stamps. Now I'm going to fight Medicaid. And so Trump is just able to isolate one individual thing and destroy it. Oh, here's the Department of Education, one at a time. A shutdown pisses everybody off at once. Everybody is like, wait, I'm on the line. And they all join in the fight. And if what really is happening here is Chuck Schumer is saying, we can't ever win a fight. We can't ever win a fight. There is never going to be a day where he fights, ever. It's always going to be now is not the time. Move maybe we'll keep our powder dry. Because what Chuck Schumer is really communicating is that there is no powder. He has got to go.
Much of Medicaid, but they could do all that on their own. That's the problem. There is no check on them with a shutdown. That's not to say this CR bill is a good bill. It isn't. It didn't have any safeguards in it. But it would be much, much worse to have a shutdown. And my job, Chris, as leader, is to see things a little bit ahead down the road and see how horrible this would be and alert people to it.
So I want to sort of present two arguments on the other side. One of them is that it was quite, and I hear you on this. This is not an easy call. I want to be clear. I mean, I don't think it is, but, you know, the AFG union, which is the largest union representing federal workers, they won a big victory today in federal court about those probationary employees who were fired. They came out against the CR, which really surprised me, right? These are the people that seem to have the most skin in the game on precisely the terms you're enunciating. And they said, the fact that this CR has no protections that will actually be followed means that we can't support it. If the people whose livelihoods are on the line say you cannot go along with this thing, why are they wrong?
I understand why they're so upset with the CR, but I disagree with them because the shutdown would be worse for their employees. They could just eliminate huge portions of government workers automatically. They could eliminate programs automatically, which they can't do on the CR. The CR has certain spending, and they can screw around with it, and they will. These guys are sons of guns. They're going to do.
In the year of our Lord 2025, saying sons of guns. Like it's 1962 children's television. Pathetic.
We had a very detailed conversation. I met with FEMA Director Cameron Hamilton earlier this week for about an hour and a half. Had a chance to
Like, I mean, this is the reality of where we're going, and this is what radicalization looks like, chat. This is what radicalization looks like. Liberals losing, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. I'm being proven right again. Now that Kamala Harris was defeated, liberals are becoming even more radicalized against the Democratic Party. I'm being proven right again. Accelerationism is actually working in this case. And the reason why it was the reasonable thing to do, although accelerationism is not my strategy, it's just the reality of now that the Democratic Party is offering itself up as a pathetic fucking loser party, the frustration with the status quo is intensifying, especially among Democrats. And that gives us an opportunity to change the Overton window, to expand it once again. I am unhappy that Donald Trump is president of the United States. I didn't want him to be president of the United States, but I said he would be, and this would be the result. So it's not always not lost. I also told you the Democrats would never fight back. The radicalization opportunities for liberals is here. And the Democrats like Chuck Schumer have sown the seeds of that radicalization opportunity because for years they've been saying that Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Donald Trump is a fascist. Donald Trump is Hitler. They've been saying that for years. And now Donald Trump is in power and he's doing radical shit and the Democrats won't even fight back. The liberals believe their leaders and now they see their leaders acting in incoherent ways, inconsistent ways, and they're frustrated. And guess what? Their hatred of Donald Trump is a hell of a lot bigger than their trust in the Democrats. So now is the time to radicalize a liberal. Now is the time not to say I told you so, as tempting as it is. As tempting as it is for me to... you don't know how much I want to go into Emma Vigeland and Sam Cedars' replies and say, told you so, bitch. But now is not the time for I told you so's. Okay? Now is not the time for I told you so. Now is the time for radicalizing a liberal. Now is the time to be the bigger man, the bigger woman, the bigger NB. And offer leadership. Not petulant whining, not arrogant know-it-allism, even though that's my natural state. It is the time to radicalize a normie. Now, when I say radicalize, I don't mean go at them with, 8 jargon terms about dialectical materialism and dictatorship of the proletariat. I mean, reach them where they are and say, look who's fighting back. It's the Democratic Socialists of America. You want to fight back? You need to join the Democratic Socialists of America. You need to support left-wing parties and left-wing candidates. You need to grab as many liberals and put them on the right path. The problem is that liberals are saying, I told you so. No, they're not. No, they absolutely aren't. They're mad at Chuck Schumer. This is why it's a golden opportunity. They're not talking about Kamala Harris. In fact, they're mad at Biden and Harris right now because an article just came out where Joe Biden said, no daylight, kid. And she listened. And if there's one thing that Americans hate, it's a loser. All right? And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are fucking losers. Now, you probably don't want to say that to a liberal, like, she's a loser. It would feel really good. And trust me, I do it all the time. But now is not the time for that. To be fair, DSA ain't doing shit either. Yes, they are. One thing that I would... DSA tries to work with join a socialist organization, PSL, DSA, whatever. Actually join both. I want you to understand something, chat. Our job right now is not to try to figure out who the winner is going to be. Our job right now is to infiltrate as many organizations as we can and yank them to the left. It is not our job to go like, I am the most correct left-winger and I have picked the best organization. No. Our job right now is to join every organization and infiltrate every organization and grab leadership at every organization. That is our job. He's busy promoting his new book about why Israel rules. By placing anti-Semitism in its proper historical context and drawing from Senator Schumer's own life, the book informs Americans' understanding of the causes of the recent swell of anti-Semitic rhetoric and violence in our country. In very personal terms, it will engage with debates of the purpose and meaning of Israel and help draw a line between legitimate criticism of its government and when criticism of Israel as a Jewish homeland verges into anti-Semitism. This book is a warning, informed by the lessons of history about what could happen when the world's oldest hatred is allowed to rise unchecked. It's not. What? Oh, God. What a pathetic fucking loser. Anti-Semitism in America is his book deal. He has a talk with Richie Torres scheduled. This is what I'm talking about, guys. This is what I'm talking about, guys.
You've got nothing to say but lie. You're lying. I'm a veteran and you don't give a f about me. You don't get the feeling for us. You don't get to take away our rights. You don't get to take our rights. Get off of me. You don't get to do it.
Look how many cops and bodyguards are there.
You don't get to do this.
Pathetic fucking losers. And the reason why these cops are able to get him out of the room is because nobody else defended him. Because people are just in bystander mode. And that is your mission. Your mission is to educate people out of bystander mode. Your mission in life is to tell people that they can stand up to these people. Their authority does not exist. It only exists in your mind. That is what you need to develop. A rejection of the legitimacy of the United States government. Now, again, baby steps. Baby steps. It's important that when you're radicalizing a liberal that you always do so from the position that you could justify inside that moment. All right? It needs to be valid within the logic of that moment, right? You want to provoke oppression that is unjustifiable or extreme. You don't want to act extreme because then that makes your oppression more justifiable optically. We're in an optics war now. There will be time in the future when that will change. I am literally immune to bystander effects so much that I thought I had TISM at some point. It's made me a lot of good friends. Yeah, bystander effect is by far and away the most dangerous.
Do everything they can to hurt the government. You know what they've talked about. Elon Musk, this billionaire who cares nothing about taking people's Social Security away, this guy says that he wants to cut $2 trillion out of the federal government. A shutdown would allow him to do it. And here's another point, Chris. There's no exit ramp. Anyone who wants the shutdown, I've asked them, well, how do we get out of it? Guess who it's up to get out of it? Donald Trump, Elon Musk, Doge. So it's it's two bad alternatives. And I respect people who actually don't want it, vote for the CR. It's awful. But with the alternative being a government shutdown, that's even worse.
So here's the other sort of way that I've heard people phrase this, right? Democrats don't control any part of the government. Right. So there's not a ton of leverage. The one thing they have leverage is in the Senate where you need a filibuster-proof majority on a cloture vote. That there's essentially an unconstitutional assault on the government right now. And I think you would agree with that,
there
right?
Is.
An assault on the constitutional
These guys are the worst.
Okay, and so you're giving them exactly what they want. They're the worst. They're assaulting the Constitution. That's why I'm passing their bill. What are you talking about?
Literally everyone but them, but all of the Democrats protesting during the State of the Union by wearing a pink situation and holding up their little signs is the exact same energy, but 100 times worse, as all of those celebrities singing Imagine during COVID, living in their mansions and shit. That is what that's giving. It's the same exact energy as reading in your history book that, oh, the politicians who were against Hitler, well, they decided to try to stop him by showing up to his speech and all wearing purple hats. Do you hear how stupid that sounds? Protest is not for you. Protest is for the people. We have to engage in acts of protest and speech and symbolism and rebellion in order to have our voices heard. If we are protesting what the government is doing, you are the government. You are the government, the ones we voted in to do what we need and to protect our democracy and values and rights. You are the person we're talking to. You protesting in there is just talking at each other. You're talking at the problem and then still sitting for it and acknowledging that it has power and just shrugging and wearing a pink fucking jacket. That shit pisses me off beyond reason. And them saying, well, we don't have any power to do, we can't, well, what are we supposed to? Trump and Elon, 90% of the things that they have done, they also do not legally have the power to do, but they've been doing it anyway. Following the rule book, holding tight to those rules and whatever, isn't this moral high ground that you're taking. You're not better for it. You're actually worse. Because the rule book in and of itself, our Constitution and our rule of law and our system of governments in and of itself hinges upon the fact that none of y'all would have let this shit happen. If this shit is happening, of course our principles of democracy are not going to work properly because no one on their side is going to follow the rules. So you just holding on to the rule book and saying, well, we're getting dunked on the House, but I'm going to wear a pink shirt. That's fucking useless. Actively disrupting a fascist regime requires that you play outside of the rules. Y'all need to start doing that because all of you just honoring this system of governance that is not happening anymore, that doesn't exist anymore because you're thinking that, oh, well, democracy will just like get itself out of it. That's not what's going to happen. Rules of law and the Constitution do not account for you allowing a hostile takeover. Bar for bar, honest to God, if you look it up from the 1930s, how Hitler took over the government, sitting in that room and pretending that this all still works is absolutely dignifying something that has lost all legitimacy. Sitting there and following the fucking rules and voting for shit that you're gonna fucking lose on, even though it's taking away the rights and dignities and money and everything, economic policy, everything. Our country is going to shut the fuck down. In 1 year, I don't think people realize how bad it's going to get. Okay? Trump threatening to fire all of the lawyers and judges who disagree with him, saying they're going to be investigated. The American Bar Association having to release a statement saying, fuck, like we are holding the line. We are bipartisan, but what the fuck? Like, this is really bad. You cannot, this is what we do. Trump saying, oh, the judicial branch is not allowed. Lawyers and judges are not allowed to tell the executive branch what the laws mean, when that's literally to a T what our jobs are. That's the job description of what the judicial branch is. Acknowledging that the institution itself is broken requires acting outside of it now.
And this is actually very basic political science. These institutions do not exist as self-justifying institutions. Institutions only exist as objects of social consensus. Laws only exist as objects of social consensus. Laws only, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. When you're driving on the highway, how fast do you go? Do you go the speed limit or do you go 10 miles over? The law says you're supposed to go the speed limit, but everybody goes 10 miles over. Why? Because it has become the social consensus that going 10 miles over the speed limit is okay. And so we all do it. So we all flout the law because that's what we all socially are conditioned to do. So there's a different law, which is you're actually an asshole if you drive the speed limit. People will actually get mad at you if you drive the speed limit. And so, but if you got pulled over and you were going 10 over, the cop could write you a ticket. And would you think that was a fair ticket, or would you be pissed off? You'd be like, come on, man, I'm going 10 over. This is what everybody does. This is bullshit. This is arbitrary. This is unfair. But actually, it wouldn't be. But because social consensus is so ingrained that you can go 10 miles over, you get to go 10 miles over. And this is true of every law. You actually don't follow laws. You operate intuitively. This is actually reality. You don't know what the fucking laws are. Lawyers don't know what the fucking laws are. You operate according to the norms and expectations of behavior that you have been inculcated with, and you assume the law lines up with it. That is how people actually behave. Well, guess what? That's not the case. The Republicans are saying we're going to change the norms and we're going to use the law to do so. And we're going to use force with the law as justification. Do you understand that? The Republicans are saying we control the state, and so we're going to change the norms and we're going to use force, justifying itself with the law. And so they are now going to use the institutions to enforce a change in our society. So either you accept that these institutions have been irrevocably broken and do not represent the democratic will of the people, or you accept the use of force without protest. That is how law operates in society. I'll give you an example from my lifetime. Laws against littering and laws against indoor smoking. When I was young, people would smoke indoors. They would smoke in the library. They would smoke at the bar. They would smoke at your restaurant. They would smoke in the airplane. People were smoking constantly. It was normal. It was expected. There were ashtrays in the backs of plane seats. There were ashtrays. Every car had a fucking lighter involved. And guess what? We as a society looked at the evidence that secondhand smoke was damaging people's health, and we passed a law, and that gave us the justification to start using force against people who were smoking next to us indoors. And we made it a small, relatively small fine, right? It's not the end of the world. We didn't put a gun to your head. But it was basically, we have the ability to take money out of your bank account if you smoke indoors. And that gave other people the right to start shaming you. Hey, you're not allowed to smoke in here. That's against the law. That's against the rules. No smoking. Get out. And what had been the expected norm changed because of the use of law. And now, if I were to go into a fucking hospital and start smoking, every single person, smoker or no, would tell me I'm a fucking lunatic and throw me out. But when I was growing up, their doctor used to come into your fucking room with a lit cigarette. Like, so these are the changes that I have literally seen. Really? Like, let me see what it's like. Firing line from the 60s. Let me see if I can find like
Shakespeare.
people like smoking. Do you think do people smoke at the fire? Did anybody like? I'm sure there's episodes where people were smoking in the firing line. Maybe not, but maybe he had. Maybe he was a non-smoker. Okay, let me see if I can find that. I'm trying. Or you
Having a mighty
world order that even God knows how bad it's gonna get. I mean, like, this is how shit changes. I bring this up just because I'm trying to explain it something so that even liberals can't disagree with me. You know what I mean? Like, either you stand up and you start fighting back with everything you've got, or you accept the new world order of God knows how bad it's gonna get.
But no one is willing to do that. And it's honestly embarrassing and disgusting. Wearing a different color shirt and holding up a little sign, enough.
You know, if you were to follow a busy doctor as he makes his daily round of calls, you'd find yourself having a mighty busy time keeping up with him. Time out for many men of medicine usually means just long enough to enjoy a cigarette. And because they know what a pleasure it is to smoke a mild, good-tasting cigarette, they're particular about the brand they choose. In a repeated national survey, doctors in all branches of medicine, doctors in all parts of the country were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this...
Yeah, you can see he's literally using the car lighter. I mean, honestly, when I had a car, when I got my first car, it had a car lighter in it. Like, this is something that even you younger people have noticed. Car lighters have only, like, kind of recently stopped being in cars.
Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Why not change to Camels for the next 30 days and see what a difference it makes in your smoking enjoyment. See how Camels agree with your throat. See how mild and good tasting a cigarette can be.
Ashing inside your car is so gross, dude. All right, what else were we talking about? Yeah, okay, I got off on a rant, chat, and I haven't been... See, like, this is one of the things that's so funny about my stream. People will come into my stream and be like, Mike just reacts to stuff. I just did, what, 2 hours of... And I had, like, maybe 10 minutes of video, 15 minutes of video there. How much was that even me talking about reacting to videos or me just pulling up videos to make a point? It's crazy how people like... I think I probably... I mean, it's just fucking insane. I don't know what else to even say. Citizenship is only for those who lick the boot now. U.S. Secretary of State Rubio, expect more student visas to be revoked in the coming days. This is literally against the spirit of the First Amendment. Which is basically, this is what conservatives do. You know, they want to make it, oh yeah, freedom of speech, but if you disagree with us, then you're undesirable. So like, if I as an American said, Israel is an apartheid state, they can't do anything to me because of the First Amendment. But if you as a permanent resident agree with me, now you can be deported? Does that sound like a world of free speech to you? I guess that creates a whole bunch of statements that people are going to be deported for. What about abortion should be a right? Is that something that could be deported for? What about gay marriage is legitimate? What about trans rights are human rights? What about trans women are women? What about we should raise the minimum wage? What about you should join a union? I mean, are those illegal? Are those undesirable? Are those something that violates the First? Because if the First Amendment doesn't apply, anybody who's not a citizen can't say anything that might piss off a Republican? That's the world you want to live in, you fucking dumb piece of shit, Asmongold? And before you try to justify, oh, they were supporting terrorists. Terrorism is a designation that has been given to some of the history's greatest liberators, like, for example, Nelson Mandela. It is a meaningless designation. It is a political designation. So what you're basically saying is, I want the United States government to be able to censor speech. I'm not saying if somebody sends money or builds a bomb, that's material support of terrorism. But if somebody says, I think that the Palestinian resistance is legitimate under international law, which it is, by the way, and which has never been denied, that doesn't make you a terrorist. Speech does not make you a terrorist. Why are you just accepting they won't strip birthright citizenship from critics of Israel? I don't assume that. I don't assume that. This is the first step on that ladder. They're testing to see what they can get away with. And Asmongold is saying, I want people to be censored who say things I disagree with. I mean, he is somebody who came out and said he doesn't care if somebody is genocided, and he thinks that words are terrorism. That's an interesting belief to have when you just said that, dumbass. And I can say, chat, you know, listen, I am a leftist, so I already understand the game. You know, I understand the game. People like Asmongold don't believe in the First Amendment. Okay, they don't believe in freedom of speech. People like Asmongold use freedom of speech so they can get away with shit when they're not in power. And the moment they're in power, now suddenly freedom of speech doesn't mean what it said when they were out of power. What a disgusting rat.
Piece of paper that we will impound and rip up the moment it's passed. If that's the case, how is voting for cloture not essentially an imprimatur on the very same assault on the constitutional order?
They're already, even without this CR, they're already doing it.
Right.
Okay? They did it to the Department of Education. But I can tell you, I've been through shutdowns before. It's not that this CR is good. It's not that voting for it is good. It's horrible. But the alternative is worse.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the logic of the Democratic Party that has gotten us to this point, which is why I told you loud and proud I will not vote for Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris is on the screen with us right now, which is utter capitulation to the right wing. Kamala Harris was a holding action until the next virulent stage of fascism was able to seize power. We need an antidote. We need a antibiotic. We need a radiation. We need chemotherapy to treat fascism. No more of this nonsense.
We have to look just a month ahead and see how bad a shutdown would be for all the things we believe in, and how I'd say Trump and Doge and Musk and Vogt, they're like drooling with happiness and desire to get a government shutdown. They've said they want it. Why? Not for doing anything good, I'll tell you that. These guys are authoritarians.
Let me just stay with this for 1 second. I think the theory of the case for people that don't want Democrats to vote for cloture is that Americans don't quite understand what's being done to their government. It's being done in this sort of haphazard fashion. The stories are sort of getting out. You know, there's this Forest Service worker who got laid off for no reason, and there's this veteran who's got a traumatic brain injury, who's got a clinical trial. But the shutdown would be a way of actually calling the question. And here's what I would just offer. It seems to me that the demand that makes the most sense here, and I'm not a U.S. Senator, is for the Republicans to vote on a rescission package that enunciates the cuts Doge has done, as opposed to allowing an unelected co-president unilaterally eviscerate the American constitutional power of the purse.
Well, the bottom line is the Republican Senate is in total obeisance to Trump. They're not going to oppose him in any way. But if they allow Trump to make the kind of drastic cuts that I greatly fear in a government shutdown, they'll be culpable as well. And make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. Ask yourself again the question, why does Musk and Trump and Vogt want this? Vogt already has plans on how to slash the government, far worse than slashed in the CR. Much worse. Every program, every part of government would be at their disposal, their wicked disposal. So that's the problem here. It's not that the CR is good, it's horrible. All things being equal, we should have opposed it. But the alternative being a shutdown makes things worse, and I believe this much worse. And
the Republicans control the House, the Senate, and the White House. And Chuck Schumer believes that he will be blamed. Did you see Sex Pestity workshopping to get unbanned from Twitch? He will never be unbanned from Twitch. I want to just communicate to any Destiny watcher, I know for a fact he will never be unbanned. Ever. So just give up, honestly. For his own mental health, he should just give up.
I believe this. I wouldn't have done this. I knew I'd get criticized, but I felt obligated for the country, for my Democratic caucus, to the people, to explain how bad a shutdown would be, and if we went into a shutdown and everything bad.
There's a civil war going on. Nancy Pelosi issues a statement calling on Democratic senators to reject the House funding bill, i.e. to defy Chuck Schumer. Democratic senators should listen to the women, she says, referring to Murray DeLauro, who won a 1 month stopgap bill instead. Donald Trump and Elon Musk had offered the Congress a false choice between a government shutdown or a blank check that makes a devastating assault on the well-being of working families across America. Let's be clear. Neither is a good option for the American people, but this false choice that some are buying instead of fighting is unacceptable. I salute leader Hakeem Jeffries for his courageous rejection of this false choice. And I'm proud of my colleagues in the House Democratic Caucus for their overwhelming vote against this bill. Democratic senators should listen to the women. Appropriation leaders Rosa DeLauro and Patty Murray have eloquently presented the case that we must have a better choice. A 4-week funding extension to keep the government open and negotiate a bipartisan agreement. America has experienced a Trump shutdown before, but this damaging legislation only makes matters worse. Democrats must not buy into this false choice. We must fight back for a better way. Listen to the women for the people. God, she's such a fucking liberal. But even she thinks Chuck Schumer is a fucking feckless loser.
That happened. I had to give people this warning.
Can I'm gonna just keep you for 2 more questions, if that's okay. One is a sort of question about strategy and dealing what I think you and I and many people watching this agree is essentially an assault on the constitutional order, and that it's
Absolutely.
This. The only thing they understand is meeting conflict with conflict. So if you look at Doug Ford in Ontario, who banged the table and said, "You're going to tariff us, I'm going to tariff you, we're going to put a surcharge on electricity," that the only thing that gets their attention, the only thing that gets them to back down is meeting conflict with conflict. If you meet conflict with essentially managed retreat or strategic non-engagement, then they roll
Chris,
all over you.
We are going to conflict with them on everything. On the tax cuts for the billionaires. They become a plutocracy, an oligarchy. On Medicaid. We have plans to conflict them with all of that. If the shutdown occurred, we wouldn't be able to do that because they would fill up both the Senate and the discussion on whether we should cut this and not cut that, of things that they want to cut. So to have the conflict on the best ground we have, summed up in a sentence, that they're making the middle class pay for tax cuts for billionaires, it's much, much better not to be in the middle of a shutdown, which stood.
So basically what it seems to me is that Chuck Schumer thinks that Democrats would receive more heat than Republicans if there was a government shutdown. Which, by the way, why would they? It doesn't even make sense. Donald Trump is president. Republicans are in charge of shit. The Democrats want to keep spending money. Why the fuck would they get more heat? It doesn't make any sense.
To divert people from the #1 issue we have against these bastards, these people, which is not only all these cuts, but they're ruining democracy. And one other thing on a shutdown. On a shutdown, the courts could close or at least be totally disabled. And the courts are one of the best ways we've had to go after these guys.
Final question about just an issue of intercameral strategy. I mean, the Democrats voted en masse against this in the House. They lost only 1 vote, Jared Golden in Maine. I've seen a lot of House members, and across an ideological range, interestingly enough, urging the Senate to filibuster this, saying, look, this is existential about whether we control the power of the purse or not. We cannot essentially sign off on this Doge unilateral arrogation of this power.
Yeah, look, I supported what the House did to vote against this bill universally, but that didn't cause a shutdown. It's different in the Senate. And I knew people were going to disagree with me, but I felt so strongly that the shutdown would be the greatest disaster we face with these arrogant autocrats that we had to avoid the shutdown and fight on many of the other things, every other issue that we have.
All right, Senator Chuck Schumer, who's the leader of the Democrats in the Senate, announcing he will be a yes for cloture tomorrow. I imagine you will have the 6 or so other votes you need to get that over the hump.
Even Charlemagne says Schumer and Hakeem have got to go.
Party of inaction, the Democrats have failed to protect the interests of the American people. And you know why, dems suck at messaging? Because they never talking about nothing. And they do nothing. So guess what? To me, they all got to go. Like dems don't just have a messaging problem. They got to...
Can we start a new party, Bernie? Come on! At least try. You're 83. What do you got to lose? You're an independent. Can you try? What does Bernie Sanders have to lose? Like, what does Bernie Sanders have to lose? Oh, no, The Democrat, he doesn't even accept the Democratic nomination. Like, there's never been a man in the history of America better positioned to start a new party than Bernie Sanders right now. Never in our history. Bernie Sanders is like, I mean, yes, I wish he was younger. I wish he was younger. So fucking what? He's not. Donald Trump is 80 something too. Who gives a shit? Who fucking cares? Now is the time. I don't care if he's 95 or 99 or 110. If he's able to go out there and talk, that's good enough for me.
Leadership problem.
Whatever you wish. Thank you for my mush. Theo's been giving me oatmeal for breakfast. And I call it mush. Bernie said he was considering starting a new party. I deserve that. I shouldn't have believed you. I shouldn't have believed you. Bernie Sanders doing something I agree with? Like, that's that bold? Of course not.
The Chuck Schumers of the world, the Hakeem Jeffries, they should all step down, and any Dem who isn't fighting for the people and standing with the party should be primary. Like, how can you say the bill sucks, but you're passing it anyway? Like, you're not going to even try to, present something different, right? Try to negotiate, nothing? Just it sucks, but we're going to pass it anyway.
Yeah, that's been the commentary. Basically, I think a lot of the world agrees with you on that, because it just seems as though the Democrats can't come together on anything.
Nothing.
So
Ever.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. No.
So what's the point of voting for them? Like, literally.
Well.
I just don't even understand it, man. I don't even understand the argument against it at this point. The only argument against it is, well, how are you going to make people do it? And it's like, the only way it's going to happen, I want you guys to understand something. It's just when people are yelling for it. Stop asking for a plan. Just start yelling for it. Start demanding it. Just start demanding it. Just be like, Bernie, start a new party. Bernie, start a new party. Just start demanding it.